You are listening to The Ben Keech Show, where every day the objective is simple. Ben will never stop fighting the fight and lighting the light on topics that affect you every day.
All right, welcome everybody to the Ben Keech Show. This is episode 42, and I have a wonderful guest with us today, all the way from California. Christiane, you are focused on a lot of fun, happy things. You're smiling, and I'm looking at your business and the name of your podcast. Tell everybody what your business is. Tell me about your podcast before we kind of get into some great dialogue today.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Ben. My name is Christiane, living in beautiful place, San Luis Obispo, California. Fun fact is San Luis Obispo was actually voted the happiest place in the whole world for a few years.
Wow.
Who knows how they voted it, but that's a fun fact.
I mean, obviously I may not be in the right place, or I need to bring some of that happiness here. Maybe we can get second place or something. I don't know.
Love it. Well, so today I'm actually going to share some really cool tips. But before we get into what I'm going to share, I'm a health and happiness coach. I help people stay on track with regard to their accountability. Because the more accountable you are, the more you get things done. And today I'm actually going to share some tip how we can get things done, overcome some of that procrastination that might have settled in by now when those New Year's resolutions are maybe going away a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that is the topic of our episode today, that we got to solve problems and we got to get things done. And there's so many reasons why we don't, so many things we could be accomplishing. So let me start with this. So tell me, when it comes to getting things done, tell me about a time in your life where it was tough for you to get things done. What did that look like? Tell the audience about that. I'm curious.
Well, so I've shared with you that I'm a health and happiness coach, and that's really only one part of my life.
Okay.
So to really look into what I'm doing is I'm actually a full-time professor at the university here in San Luis Obispo. It's called Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I teach innovation, entrepreneurship, and marketing classes on a full-time basis. The health and happiness coaching is really my side gig. And I'm also a fitness instructor at the recreation center here on campus. And I also teach Red Cross safety classes. Okay. So now, given that I added all this on, you're like, oh my gosh, how does she do that? I have one more thing. I'm also a mom of two children.
Right.
So you just asked me when I'm struggling to get things done, when one of those little elements is not working well. So you kind of like think you are like this big train station, and you scheduled all the trains to leave and take off at the same time. But all of a sudden, one of those trains is like delayed. And then you're realizing, oh my gosh, it's like throwing off the whole schedule, because everything that happens afterwards is going to be just this huge mess.
Right.
Last week, my children were sick, and all of a sudden, the whole like working from home, going to work, it doesn't work anymore, because when your kids are sick, you basically have to drop everything and take care of them. So my very first job is always family first.
Right.
I have to take care of them. And then everything else just has to go into place. So I'm very fresh in sharing with you how we can get things done when you struggle with anything that life just happens, so to speak.
Right. So have you always has, like, when you're trying to raise a family and have multiple professions or responsibilities, how do you manage all of that? How does that work? Because that seems like it can be a lot to juggle at times.
Yeah. So my very first tip that I'm going to share with you today is you don't just have a to-do list. You also have a list where you celebrate small wins. You could call it gotcha list. I know there's an author that calls it ta-da list, something that you essentially write down, I got this done.
Right.
So instead of adding on to your to-do list, you can take some of the things off that you would scratch out on your to-do list and write them over on your got done list. The
Uh,
reason for that is this positive momentum or reinforcement will actually let you get more things done, because it's
Interesting.
really overwhelming when you constantly look at your list. You're like, she got nothing done today, and it's just getting longer and longer. If you really dig down deep, and I actually have done this before, where I basically just wrote down things on my got done list or gotcha or ta-da list that weren't even on my to-do list. Like, okay, well, I got out of bed today. I got dressed. I went for a walk. I ate
Right.
breakfast. I mean, all of these are small wins that on other days when you're really struggling might seem it's a lot of work. So you can celebrate all that. And that positive momentum is kind of getting your body going, because you're like, man, I did actually do a lot. So don't be so hard on yourself, but
Yeah.
celebrate small wins.
No, that's really good advice. What do you when you see people struggle acknowledging what they do, why do you think that is? Why do they struggle just looking at the positive things that they might be accomplishing?
Well, because we tend to look at things we need to get done in a very big way. And I see this a lot in the classroom with my students. I used to say, all right, in week 5 of the semester, you have to turn in a project. And initially, we're all thinking, well, I have tons of time. And then they
Right.
procrastinate. And then maybe in week 4, they're like, oh my gosh, there's a deadline. And this thing is big. This project counts a lot of my grade. And then they start struggling
Right.
and they start, really freaking out. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. This project due next week. And then the sleepless nights kick in and they turn out something that's like, half baked, so to speak.
Right.
Well, what will help is, and I actually teach this way now. Let's take this project. Every week, I give them time in the classroom to work on that project. And I actually have deadlines where they turn in pieces of that project as an assignment.
Right.
So think about that. You take something big that you need to get done, and you're breaking it down into smaller milestones that, again, you can celebrate. You can put them on your ta-da or got done list. So you're all of a sudden making, there's this famous saying, how do you eat an elephant? You're making that elephant like piece by
Yeah.
piece. It's more accomplishable. And the amazing thing, of course, is you can get this done. And if you share with others, I'm working on this, it actually holds you accountable, because others might ask you about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, you're working on this project. How is that going, by the way? And then you can say, you know what? Today, I did the first step in accomplishing my goal.
Right.
So let's not look at a project act like this thing that's like 3 months away and you're not getting started, but rather reverse engineer, look at the 3 months and break them down into smaller timelines, and then slowly start working on them week by week, maybe even day by day.
Yeah, I think that I needed to know you when I was younger, when I had, especially in college, I had all sorts of dilemmas with myself in that time period. And when you were talking, I was kind of thinking about, so you have a couple of kids, right? So I'm thinking about how this would work like for parents and kids. Okay. I've got 3 kids myself. So let's say, not education, but like a job, like what do kids have to do? They have to clean the room, they have to clean the house. Okay. And we make them stay in there, like you're staying there till that room's, I don't want to see you until everything is pretty, or whatever we say as parents when we give them that task. So even from a cleaning perspective, I'm saying if I'm told my kid to clean the house, I mean, it's Sunday. You got the like, how would this? I'm trying to think of a practical like way that parents could tackle this with their kids when the kids are just going to basically ignore them or not want to do it, or I don't know. I'm thinking can you think of a way to apply this and getting your kids to do stuff they don't want to do?
Oh, for sure. And actually, my kids are cleaning the house too. So
Uh,
high five to us.
congratulations.
I think, just mentioning why I'm doing this, because sometimes you wonder, it's like, why does she have her children clean the house? Because I see in my students in the classroom, the 21-year-olds,
Right.
I want to raise children that actually know how a house gets messy
Right.
and how to prevent it.
Right.
Right. So I want children that know how to do laundry and fold it and put it in a dryer and clean a bathroom and clean a toilet. Right. So
Right.
because then it makes you more conscious about how the mess happens, and
Yeah.
you might actually change your behavior, speaking of small things, and maybe not throw clothing and towels on the ground, but rather pick them up after you take a shower, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of my tip. When you involve them in the work and
Right.
in the planning, whether that's grocery shopping, whether that's cleaning a house, or whether that's just cleaning up after eating, they realize that taking care of small tasks prevents a big mess.
Right.
So I kind of go around on a daily basis, or maybe every other day or weekly basis, and I say, all right, so there's a basket of laundry sitting there in the living room. And whenever we open the door and we get a package from Amazon, that person looks at that basket there, right? It's like it's
Right.
just not
Right.
disappearing. And then
Right.
you have friends coming over, and they come over after school before basketball. You really want that basket to be sitting there? So actually put a little bit of thought into this, because they don't want that the house looks messy when their friends come over.
Yeah.
And that helps too. My biggest tip to you as a parent is you have to schedule the friends coming over or events where everybody has to kick in and get that house ready. It's the biggest motivator to clean up.
Right. Right. And so,
Host a sleepover or something, and all of a sudden they're like, man, better get that house cleaned up. Let's do it.
if they want to have their friends over, if they want to do some of the things they want to do. I was thinking also while you were talking that, I like say a kid's playing video games and you want them to, you're wanting them to do something. I was like the idea of giving them a time. And so, hey, by 2:30, maybe it's 1 o'clock, by 2:30, this needs to be done. So they have the freedom to continue doing what they're doing, knowing that this has to be done. And if this isn't done, then there's whatever, some natural consequence, I guess. But just putting a time on there, and then now they're in control. Now they are in control of their life. They have a timeline. I'm not shutting down what they're doing right now, but that's life, deadlines and timelines. It's like what you were talking about, breaking tasks down. Here's what has to be done, and here's when it needs to be done by. And I think it gives kids a little bit more freedom to kind of like, okay, I can do that. I don't know, it's just a different dynamic. I think.
I have something I want to show you, because I'm
Yeah.
using, and I have a whole box of these goodies, but I will show
Okay.
you the one that I have on my desk.
Okay.
So I think the technical term for this is actually Pomodoro technique.
Okay.
So you use these timers, and that's
Yeah.
a pretty straightforward timer. I know in the digital age, you're like, oh my gosh, there's like numbers on there. That's
Right.
like,
Very old school.
wow, how do I read this? Right.
Yes.
So the middle part here, you actually take this little dial and then you pull it up, and it basically allows you to set a timer for 5, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So Pomodoro technique is you work without distraction for
Okay.
25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break. And then again, start the timer, 5-minute break. Start the timer, 5-minute break. So the distraction means no notifications on your phone, no getting up and doing anything for 25 minutes. You can sit your fanny down and you just work.
Right.
And the important thing is that you start to look forward to the 5 minutes. So you really crank things out. So if your children are small and they don't know how to look at the time, or maybe they don't have necessarily somebody that constantly checks in, and you said you still have 10 minutes, because that's the nagging the parent have to do, right?
Sure. Right.
Use a very simple timer. So I have a whole box of them. I bought it on Amazon, and they have different colors. So this is an hour timer. I have some that are just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because we use
Right.
them for games too.
Right.
Because sometimes on games, my children just think about the answer forever, and it's like, come on, people. And then I
Right.
use the timer to get going.
Right.
So in any case, if your child has like no sense of time, and that's cool. I love that, because we don't all need to be like these like fidgety people that are constantly on the edge and hustling. I love that. If you're just kind of this easygoing person, the timer will take the work out of figuring out how much time do I have left in that computer game right now.
Right.
And then just goes off. And you're like, okay, I heard the timer.
Yeah.
Looks like right now you're going to do your homework or whatever you're moving on to.
Right.
And
I like that.
I think the important thing is this is about as simple as it can get,
Yeah.
because it doesn't involve a phone. it doesn't involve a microwave or something in the kitchen to where like, oh, while I'm here, I may as well just look at the refrigerator and da da
Right.
da. And then they get up and they get sidetracked. I just move it to wherever they are and they can look at it. You can see the red line goes down, how much time is left. It's just a simple, like a very simple tool. And as I say, it's called Pomodoro technique.
I like that. I used something like that with timeout when my kids were younger a long time ago. And it worked really well, actually. I'm a big fan of that, actually. Let me paint you a scenario. I'm curious what you'll say to this. So we're talking about people that can't get things done, or we want people to be able to get things done, and that's what you do, is help these folks out. So one of the things that I see is, I'm a kind of a hypothetical person who he or she has in their mind, there's just a lot of moving parts. Like they get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's not a lot of, they get lost in their own to-do list. And then ultimately they don't get anything done and they just
Mhm.
struggle with moving forward. How would you
Mhm.
advise a person that kind of, their mind is kind of like that? How do you help them be more productive?
Mm. So what helps a lot is finding somebody that holds you accountable. And I
Mhm.
always say this has to be a well-loving friend.
Sure.
This cannot be a slacker themselves, so to
Right.
speak, right?
Right.
And because my PhD is in health economics, and I can tell you that if you want to be healthy, you have to look at your friends. So if you surround yourself with a whole bunch of people that all what they do all day long is sit on the couch and play computer games,
Right.
and they don't drink enough water and they're just like these absolute couch bums,
Right.
you're most likely a couch bum, or maybe you're the healthiest of the bunch. So think a little bit of like your tribe creates your vibe, right?
Okay.
So
Right.
if you want to get things done, you have to find some people that are like the starters.
Right.
And then you'll tell these people, I need to get this done. And they can text you. I have a lot of accountability meetings that I set up during during the week. For
Right.
instance, on Mondays, I meet with two amazing ladies and we have our little YouTube meeting. So we're
Right.
trying to create a YouTube video during the week. And then on Mondays, we check in and we cheer each other on. We're like,
I
okay, so
see.
what did you do?
Right. Right.
And I can honestly tell you, if I wouldn't have that YouTube meeting, I might not do my YouTube video, even though
Right.
I'm like super organized. But then
Right.
life happens, kids get sick, work gets busy. Who knows what happens? I might
Yeah.
just not feel like doing a YouTube video.
Right.
And you
Right.
know what? I could also show up to the meeting and say, you know, I didn't get it done. And that's okay too.
Right.
But the main thing is you have the meeting and then, you know, they will ask about it and you might just work at least a little bit on it. So if you really just have long to-do lists, you have to reach out for help. And I'm an accountability coach. I could be that help.
Right.
But you can also reach out to friends that will ask and maybe check in and say, all right, did you get your thing done?
What do you see when people aren't getting things done and people are kind of spinning their wheels in their life? How does that affect their mental health when they know they're falling short, but they just
Mhm.
can't seem to, like, what are some of the things you see with folks in that situation who are just not
Oh,
getting
it
things done?
happens all the, and this is actually the perfect time. And here we are, early February,
Right.
uh, coming into the Super Bowl weekend. You know,
Oh, I
usually at this
know.
time in my work as a fitness instructor, the classes are getting a little bit thinner, and people like kind of like disregard their New Year's resolutions. It's totally normal. Every year it happens. And then basically, because you didn't go on one day to the recreation center, why bother going the next day? And then you think, well, now I didn't go for 3 days. It's going to be super painful to go back. And then again, why bother? It's sweater weather anyway. So
Right.
nobody's really going to notice whether I went to the rec center or I didn't go to the rec center. And it's just also comfortable. It's like raining outside. I don't want to leave the house. And all of a sudden, your habit that you might have created on January 1 is not even a habit anymore. It's just like in the distance. So I see
Correct.
that all the time. So mentally, what happens is you're kind of starting to check out, right? So you are becoming complacent. And in a certain way, it nearly becomes the next step, becomes this huge hurdle. So I have people that sometimes email me and they say, I've even struggled getting out of the bed. I have no idea how you do that, right? Because I don't really have something to get out of bed for. And that's, as I say, step one that you could celebrate. I got out of the bed. Do I always jump out of bed like a crazy person in the morning? No.
Right.
But then what I do is I think, what would help me get out of bed? Maybe you buy yourself like a fancy little coffee thing, like some kind of special, that a mug, and you look forward to drinking out of their mug. Or
Sure.
maybe it's a special breakfast item and it's waiting for you in the refrigerator. You're like, oh man, if I get out of the fridge now, I can eat that. So you have to create something that will wait for you when you get out. It's essentially the carrot and stick.
I I when you're talking about this like working out example and like the timelines and trying to be organized, I'm thinking of, for some reason I was thinking of like single people, okay, whether they're younger, older, whatever the thing is. And so they're what are they all saying? They're saying, many of them are saying, oh, find the love of my life, or they want to, happiness and all those sorts of things. Great. The interesting thing though is when they decide, when people, it doesn't matter if it's male, female, whenever they make decisions, well, I don't really care what eating is, just they just eat whatever they want, or they slack on their workout stuff. Their best version of themselves is not going to be seen by somebody else. So what somebody
Mhm,
else is going to see in them is somebody who doesn't care, somebody
mhm,
who isn't motivated, someone who. So it's sometimes when we check out of our goals and we're showing the world a lesser version of ourselves. Guess what? That's what you're going to get in return. You're going to get what you put into it. So it's not even just about the weight or how long you live or how healthy your body is. It's you'd like to spend the rest of your life with someone. Well, guess what? People aren't going to be attracted. The people you might be interested in aren't going to be attracted to someone who doesn't care enough about themselves. And it has
mhm.
such an interesting spiral, or it can. That's I think the motivation, understanding, like you said, like the why is this important? And we live in our whys and we understand why we're doing it. I know why I'm getting up this morning. I know why this matters to me. Number one, it's going to matter to other people. Even it's going to matter to your kids. Your kids are going to be proud of their mom that she puts forth the time and energy to be the best that she can be. I mean, that's what we want for the people that we love ultimately. So anyway, I think just got my brain running there when you were talking about all of that. I thought that was good. Well, let me ask one final question, and kind of, because we've touched on like three or four really interesting components in why people don't get things done. Can you tell me, either like just like leave us with one, like if you're gonna do one thing, if you're gonna tweak one thing, make it this, like what would be your
Mhm.
your your last piece of advice for folks who are really wanting to do some of the things you're talking about?
So here's my biggest piece of advice.
Okay.
Think about the type of goal that you want to accomplish. And then ask yourself, is this an action goal or is this a result goal? And let me
Okay.
give you an example. We were talking about fitness and weight and in general accomplishing maybe just better wellness, right?
Sure. Right.
So let's say you say, oh, yeah, by March, I want to lose 5 pounds.
Okay.
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 It's actually not that off. Sometimes people say 25. I'm like, there's no way, but that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
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 All right. And then I asked them, just like what you just said, Ben. I asked them, okay, how and why? What's the purpose? I mean, do you have like a reunion from high school or something like that?
Right.
Is that just something that you have jeans that you have in the bottom of your closet you want to fit into? It's not really an amazing thing to just say, I want to lose 5 pounds, because that's a result goal.
Right.
What I would rather like is setting an action goal every day until March 1. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to achieve that goal.
I
So
like
now this
that.
is an action. For instance, every day until March 1, excuse me, I'm going to be walking for 10 minutes. And you know what? Those 10 minutes might actually lead to the 5-pound weight loss.
Right.
But the thinking is completely different because you already have an action tied to a wellness outcome.
Right.
So you could also say something like, every day I'm going to use less creamer in my coffee because that creamer is not good.
I
It
know.
has a bunch of calories in it. And I know that it's not doing good things for me. So maybe I'm going to every day eat more fruits. Or as I say, just pick like the smallest thing possible
Right.
and make that one work. And you don't have to be like, well, let me throw everything out of my pantry and then start over again. That's just like nonsense. It's so
Right.
uncomfortable. We don't want like that. So pick an action, stick to the action, and you're going to get to the result that you want to get to. But it has to be tied in with something that you actually do.
No, I love that. That's good. That's perfect. What a solid way to end the show today. Tell everybody again the name of your podcast. I don't think I gave it. We're gonna include it in the link here on YouTube, but tell everybody the name of it one more time.
It's Happy, Healthy Hustle. So think of yourself as you want to be happy, healthy, and how would you get there? You just keep hustling.
Perfect.
Happy, Healthy Hustle. And I would love to hear from you on my show as well. And it's something that if you think about you driving to work, it's like a quick little happiness in the middle of the day. So
Yeah.
listen, tune in.
I love it. That's good. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Christiane. I appreciate that. We are just honored to connect all the way from California, and there's folks all over that are going to be listening to you. And folks, remind you again, get on the social media, follow us. We'll be promoting this episode all over the place, and let us know what you think, what you liked, and hopefully you were happy the entire time you heard this show, or it made you happier or whatever. But the bottom line is that you're ready to get things done. So loved having you. Thank you so much. We will, until next time, we'll keep working to achieve all the things we're trying to achieve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope we solve one of your problems. So take good care.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. You can reach out on Ben's website, www.benkeechshow.com, or on social media to chat. And please remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode.